By the time the Class 11 corridor finally went quiet, 6 senior cadets were bleeding on the floor, and the girl named Sasha was straightening her cuffs. She was the smallest trainee in the quadrant. 8 warriors had just formed a kill wedge around her, packing a combined 940 kilograms of augmented muscle. Yet she alone remained standing. Nothing in the Academy's threat assessment matrix accounted for this aftermath. The instructor who designed our pressure testing protocols resigned a week later, unable to accept the new reality. I wish I could say it ended with those 6 on the floor. Stay close. That metallic clicking? My tailspines had been making that exact sound 10 minutes earlier. When the horseshoe formation first closed around her down at the junction, I sat locked in my security console as a junior observer. Learut, a 300-pound Nishvari whose footsteps literally rattled the deck plates, laid the hunting pack. They boxed her in perfectly against the reinforced bulkhead. Sasha stopped walking. She sighed loudly, slipping out of her creased green field jacket. She draped it over her left arm. Instead of adopting an offensive stance, the human girl smoothed a single invisible wrinkle out of the green fabric with her thumb. She folded the left sleeve over the right, matching the seams. A perfect symmetrical crease formed under her hands. To my dear Revel eyes, this freezing behavior screamed absolute biological submission. Prey animals often paralyze themselves when cornered by superior predators. I assumed her mind had simply snapped under the psychological weight of the impending violence. She looked entirely bored, treating an imminent beating like a mundane laundry chore. What the security logs would later reveal was that this wasn't her first encounter with a Mishvari hunting pack. 2 previous incident reports from the lower decks had been permanently scrubbed from the active registry by Central Command. The senior cadets didn't know they were walking into a tested variable. They only saw a fragile bite who barely reached their chest plate, completely stripped of environmental advantages. Keep your hands visible. Class 11 BRK rumbled. His vocal cords vibrated the ambient air enough to register on my audio feeds. He stepped closer, eliminating her only exit vector. Trainees flanked him, their own tail spines lying flat in aggressive anticipation. From my console, I checked the bioscanners to confirm her paralysis. The data feed flashed a contradictory warning. Her heart rate remained entirely flat, but her neurological output spiked massively. A human brain consumes 20% of its body's total energy in absolute rest, while she stood completely motionless, matching the quarters of her jacket. Her tactical processing was already running at maximum capacity. Over the comms, Sasha finally spoke. "You should sit down." The absurdity of the statement hung in the recycled air. The RK let out a wet, heavy laugh and shifted his stance forward. He raised his primary striking arm. The overhead lumen strips caught the jagged edge of his armored knuckles underneath her folded clothes. Sasha shifted her weight exactly 4 inches. With her left hand, she casually brushed a single invisible fleck of lint from her collar. She did not look up. She did not blink. Down came the armored fist. It carried enough physical force to dent starship plating. The human stepped aside. The heavy Nishvari strike cracked against the bare bulkhead, sending a spray of metal sparks showering across the deck. She folded her jacket into perfect quarters while 8 blades closed in. Human shoulder joints possess a terrifying evolutionary design. Elastic energy stores deep in their tendons like a coiled siege engine, waiting for violent release. Lifting her right arm upward, Sasha delivered a 95 miles per hour kinetic strike directly into the descending Nishvari elbow. 67 pounds per square inch of pressure concentrated entirely into a single knuckle. The thick alien joint shattered backward with a sound like snapping wet timber. The giant of the arc, the 300-pound senior cadet who routinely broke reinforced training dummies in half for sport, collapsed against the metal wall. He just sat there on the cold floor, staring blankly at his own fractured, unnatural wrist. He was completely unable to process the sheer physics of his defeat. Pungent sour panic enzymes flooded the corridor. Smelling their leader's sudden biochemical terror, The remaining attackers hesitated. That mundane laundry ritual. We had completely misread it. My console readings finally made horrifying sense. She had never been paralyzed by fear. Removing the garment simply cleared her shoulders' optimal range of motion. Folding it kept her uniform free of alien blood. The girl wasn't trapped. She was preparing for battle. Official medical files later confirmed the grim reality of her species and the true nature of the threat. The senior cadets never realized it. Earth apex predators were routinely chased to total exhaustion across open plains by early humans. She hadn't just defended herself. She had fundamentally redefined the entire threat assessment matrix of our academy. Our understanding of the predator-prey dynamic was completely backward. Sasha rose from the floor with a sickening, active groan before the others could even swing. She swept the legs from the second Mishvari and drove a palm strike into the third cadet's thorax. Exactly 0.1 to 1 seconds. That was the log duration per target elimination. The two remaining uninjured cadets stared at the carnage, sheathed their blades in unison, and quietly walked away in the sudden heavy silence. My own tail spines clicked rapidly. A 3B rhythm of pure anxiety echoed against the floor plates. A Cthal medic rushed down the hall, his boots sliding on the grated deck as he dropped to his knees beside the fallen. Nobody spoke. The air tasted of copper and dozon. Sasha picked up her belongings from the crate. The remaining combatants? She ignored completely. The overhead lumen strips buzzed, casting long shadows across the dented bulkhead. A few drops of purple Mishvari blood dripped slowly onto the metal grating below, resting securely over her left arm. The green field jacket remained perfectly aligned. The fabric showed absolutely no wrinkles. The Class 11 corridors stayed empty for the rest of the cycle.